From Nepal, where after a period of unrest lasting less than a week, extremely violent protests in which more than 50 people have lost their lives, Nepal has an interim Prime Minister. Sushila Karki will be the first woman Prime Minister and interim Prime Minister of Nepal. We'll bring you the very latest details on that as we track this story. She was sworn in at Nepal's Rashtrapati Bhavan and capped days of speculation and behind-the-scenes negotiations which took place. There were other names which were also in the fray. But at this juncture, it is Sushila Karki who's going to be the interim leader. It is unclear right now when the actual full elections in Nepal will take place and whether those elections, when they do take place, will involve the participation of the usual political parties. But I think the big question here is, will there be a lasting peace in Nepal? That's something that we need to see. So besides the President Ramchandra Podel and the Prime Minister Karki, the Vice President Ram Sahai Yadav and Chief Justice Prakash Man Singh Rawat were also present during this swearing-in ceremony. The decision itself was announced formally by the office of the President earlier on, following a consensus between the President, the Nepal Army Chief, General Ashok Raj Sigdel, and representatives of Generation Z, or Gen Z as they are known. Now these are extremely important. This entire uprising has been triggered by protests by young people, Gen Z protesters. There are many who feel that there is a lot more that doesn't come to sight at this stage, but there is no doubt about the fact that in a record period of time, we've seen a regime change in Nepal itself. My colleague Aditya Raj Kaul joins us at this stage. Aditya, thanks very much for being with us. How difficult was it to arrive at a consensus to have Sushila Karki be sworn in as the first woman Prime Minister, the interim Prime Minister of Nepal?
Well, Vishnu, it was a Herculean task in front of the Nepal President and, of course, the Army Chief, and then other negotiators who really joined in. Because remember, these Gen Z protesters did not have a leader. These Gen Z protesters had different factions and different kind of demands. And to arrive at an amicable solution was certainly a massive challenge. And that's why for the last 48 hours, we've had hectic parleys and discussions that have happened. And tonight at around 9:30 p.m., Sushila Karki finally became the first female Prime Minister of Nepal, and then, of course, she has already been the first female Chief Justice. So it is a history being written in front of our eyes here in Kathmandu at the Sheetal Niwas, which is the Rashtrapati Bhavan of Kathmandu, of Nepal. And certainly now the challenge before her would be to actually implement the kind of demands that Gen Z had put in front. Of course, first of all, would be dissolving the parliament. That could happen within the next 24 hours. There will be a recommendation given in the first cabinet meeting itself. We'll have to wait and watch because only the swearing-in ceremony of the Prime Minister has happened right now. There are now assertions being made that there would be 4 to 5 more cabinet ministers, including Om Prakash Aryal, who could be the Home Minister of Nepal. Could that happen tomorrow? We'll have to wait and watch. But as of now, the big task before her would be to really lead the country out of this challenge, out of this violence, into peace and stability, and also, Vishnu, to actually begin perhaps a campaign against corruption, because that was the biggest plank for this youth uprising in Nepal.
And Aditya, what about differences within the protesters? We've got Ankit Tyagi as well, and let me take that question across to Ankit. Ankit, I mean, it's wonderful that there is unanimity. There is a choice which has been made, Sushila Karki, the interim Prime Minister of Nepal, but there were differences within Gen Z. How did those get resolved?
I think, Vishnu, the first answer or indication of that would be that various groups of Gen Z or their leaders like Balen Shah or Mr. Gurung of the Hami Nepal, they already have some people that they trust or have worked closely with them in the cabinet to begin with. There are 3 to 4 cabinet ministers initially, those who are going to work with Sushila Karki to try and put a process going for the next 6 months, which will lead up to the elections, democratic elections in Nepal. And these groups will have someone who is close to them, someone that they trust in this process. Because whether it's Balen Shah, who is a popular mayor here in Kathmandu, or Mr. Gurung of the Hami Nepal, all of them would not possibly want to be part of this very tedious exercise, because, Vishnu, you've covered many of these. Sometimes bringing the revolution is much easier than the way forward, but what comes after that. And that is where Nepal is standing at this moment. And all these leaders, whether it is Balen Shah or Mr. Gurung, all of them at this moment seems to be preparing for those general elections, because it's just not winning one seat. It is also about, if that change comes in, getting your people elected so that whatever the Gen Z is hoping for could come true when these leaders do get elected into power. But at this moment, of course, there is, as you were talking to Aditya, consensus finally arrived, that too under a lot of pressure, because most of these young groups, most of these young people had given an ultimatum of, tonight, and they had said that their patience is running out, and if there is no consensus, the problem was stuck on the resolution of the assembly, which was finally, in fact, agreed upon when the army chief and the president met along with the other leaders. So tomorrow, at least, there is hope that people of Nepal would be looking for the roadmap ahead, and possibly elections in the next 6 months, which people with a new possibility, a new hope that they have kept on these young leaders.
All right, both of you just be with me for a moment. Rose Kandel, she's a social media influencer and an activist, joins us, as does Yuvraj Ghimire, the editor of deshsanchar.com. Ridhima is a Gen Z protester, and Koshraj Koirala, the editor of Republica Daily. Thank you all very much for being with us. Yuvraj Ghimire, it's wonderful to be speaking to you again after so many years, very different circumstances now in Nepal. Do you believe that this is hopefully going to result in a lasting peace? Has the tension on the ground, which has been simmering, we've seen so much violence, has that effectively come to an end at this stage?
Well, it's a hope, but much will depend on how much support the present cabinet will be able to gather from different political forces, including the parties who are quite discredited and whose government recently failed. But their cooperation is very important. But what we saw today is the swearing in was boycotted by almost all the former prime ministers, except Babra Matrai, and major parties were not present there. So there is one clear line of opinion among these political parties that this swearing in and Sushila Karki's appointment should have taken place under the provision of the constitution. Although, in my opinion, this constitution has miserably failed. So seeking redressal of the problem of this magnitude from within the constitution was not possible. But the cooperation of all the sides is very, very important.
Let me go across to Ridhima, who's also with us. Thanks, Ridhima, once again for tuning in and joining us.
Thank you for having me.
There was a lot of disagreement between the Gen Z groups in the last 24 hours or so. How did that get resolved?
Well, I think it's largely because the Gen Z groups and Mayor Balen Shah, who are influential figures.
Actually, I just wanted to take that across to Ridhima.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I wanted to, just 1 second, sir. I wanted to take that across to Ridhima. Ridhima, go ahead. Could you tell us how, in your opinion, the protests which we were seeing between different Gen Z groups came to an end?
Protests between different Gen Z groups. Did we have a protest?
Yes. How did that come to an end?
I can take that.
Yeah,
were there not different Gen Z groups who had different opinions who should actually be the interim prime minister, or was there unanimity? Because we were told that there were at least 3 other names doing the rounds.
Yeah, please go ahead. You can answer this.
Yeah, so we did have different groups that initiated the movement, that initiated the protest. However, the commonality was too strong to, to not focus on these things, on the things that really mattered, which was to end corruption, as vague as it sounds. I think that commonality brought us together. That is my personal opinion, of course. There was a discourse on who to be elected, but with polls that even I did on my social media platform, it showed Ms. Casey as the front runner. This whole discussion, I mean, it's going to surface in the news later. Discord was a huge help where, thousands of opinions were taken into consideration. The best candidate right now was chosen to be Ms. Casey. The commonality of ending corruption and initiating the new leadership, that was one of the biggest and most agreed upon clause for Gen Zs from all groups. So that really helped bring everything together.
Koshraj Koirala, what about the deposed government and their leaders? We know that they had to run away. They were evacuated. In other cases, they were beaten up. A, where have they all gone? And B, do the political parties that have existed in Nepal, are they still as significant as political forces?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think, yes, they are still a significant force in the country. And, many of the leaders, they are still under the protection of Nepal Army. Some of them are still in Sivapuri Barrack, which is just near, just Kathmandu. It's in the outskirt of the Kathmandu Valley. But yes, because, the UML, for example, is a cadre-based party and it has hundreds of, thousands of cadres, organized cadre. It is still a significant, formidable force. Even Nepali Congress has also significantly large number of, membership. So they are still, they're a formidable force. If you just ask me about their strength. Like Gen Z group, this is like just emotionally in a connected group. They do not have organization. It's a very loose organization. And, if you just say GNG, and they are not like, they do not belong to one particular party. Even within Nepali Congress, even within UML, there are GNG, Generation Z group. So in that case, I don't know how this group will organize itself and, move forward for their common cause. But it will be, it's going to be very challenging if this GNG group, which is spearheading this particular movement, is not able to get support from the mainstream political parties. Their cooperation is very vital, and today's the fact that not many of the senior leaders of the existing mainstream parties were present during this swearing-in ceremony speaks a lot. I mean, the Gen Z group is not able to, win the confidence of mainstream political parties, and this is going to pose significant challenges to achieve the goal that this particular group has actually trying to champion. Yes.
Yuvraj Gimine, let me come back to you. I'm just trying to understand what is going to happen to the former Prime Minister, members of his cabinet. Is there going to be a process of bringing them to justice? Are they going to be accused of corruption? And is there going to be a trial? What happens next as far as that is concerned?
I'm sure that's going to happen. And when you, asked these questions previously also, why did it take so long? I think Sushila Karki stood her ground that she would not be accepting this position if there is no agreement, or if she is not allowed to form a high-level probe team into excessive use of force on the youth Tuesday that led to the killing of at least 30 of them, and also on corruption in high places. I think political parties, top three leaders, only the one President were opposed to that. But she stood her ground, and my information is she walked out of the meeting saying, "Don't call me again if these preconditions are not met. I won't be there." So I think she is very firm on that. Hopefully, for the first time, the corruption in high places will be investigated, and those who are guilty brought to book.
Okay. Well, we did speak to Sushila Karki earlier on in the day. I'd like to thank all my guests very much for joining us. And we do hope that this process picks up pace, the process for peace. There is an interim prime minister, hopefully elections in the next few months, but stability more than anything else in Nepal. There are still cracks and differences within what people in Nepal want or what they see as the road ahead. Hopefully those will be addressed as well. But we did speak to Sushila Karki. Here's what she told my colleague Sikta Deol.
It shouldn't have happened, and
because these children actually what they were demanding, they were on a silent movement. They were in a peaceful movement, because I can prove it that no student have any kinds of arms, lathi, nothing in their hands.
so what's the way forward? My last question, what is the way forward? Because things are going out
The
of
thing is, this government should be collapsed.
They should step down,
And-
but who leads the country then?
The youth
new generation, youth, and
But do they have leaders? Do they have people who can lead them?
youth means not these are also. They are also below the 40s, below the 45s, and below the 50.
A younger politician should lead.
Yeah. They should lead, and they can do. These all are out of date. They have no any vision, no education. However, they have education, maybe certificate, but they does not seem they educated.
You are equally disillusioned like these Gen Z and the young protesters?
Yeah.
You are equally disillusioned by the government?
Yeah, I support this movement, because not yesterday, from today I am supporting this movement, because they killed our children. Innocent children they have killed. This is enough against the people. They exploited economically, they exploited for everything, and now they are taking the life of the people, life of the child. What the father and mother parent they do hard labor to raise up the child. They kill their ambition and their hope.